So, as we have emerged from lockdown, I have found that even my introverted self has felt a budding urge to meet new people. I think there are certain stages in life which cause you to reflect and have a little reshuffle in your life priorities. For me, it was cruising through another birthday and realizing that I was missing close female friendships from my friendship group. So I downloaded Bumble BFF, which is an app where you can potentially meet like minded friends. I'm a person with too many hobbies and interests, which meant that I was open to meeting a lot of different people. I did also mention in my profile that I was interested in radical feminism, but this was buried in amongst my many interests and wasn't something I prominently featured. So, I got to swiping, and I found that what I thought were theoretical identities on TikTok or Twitter were actually a reality when it came to Bumble profiles. At least a quarter of the people I saw on the app were either non binary or used she they pronouns. I would see that some women would mention feminism. I'm honestly surprised how many women mentioned it, and I would get excited, only to see something like no swerves being specified. Anyway, I was kind of taken aback by my Bumble BFF findings. I kind of loved looking through all the Bumble profiles and getting a little elevated slice of all of these women's lives and interests. It was heartening to see so many women with diverse jobs and passions. Yet, so many of them felt the need or desire to identify under the trans banner of non binary, eschewing the identity of woman. On this channel, I talk about issues with the trans movement and how they impact women. Despite this, I never thought I would make a video about non binary people because I thought it was innocuous. I thought that at its worst, it's just I'm not like other girls mentality, and at its best, it's well meaning but misguided LGBT solidarity. But seeing so many vibrant women who are in my age range of 25 to 35 on Bumble who identified as such made me change my mind due to how prevalent it was. So, in this video, I will explore the reasons why people, namely women, are adopting this identity, and how it is affecting society and women's rights. If you identify as non-binary or queer and are watching this video, I genuinely hope you stick around for the rest of the video and let me know your thoughts in the comments. So, the non-binary identity relies on the same separation of sex and gender, just like trans women and trans men. Gender ideology posits that you are assigned a sex at birth and have a separate gender identity of man or woman. The non-binary identity also depends on an individual's perception that they do not fit the archetypes of man or woman. Non-binary people really put the trans when it comes to transcending the concept of gender. At this point in the video, I'm not going to argue with the definition of non-binary. I will take it at face value and in good faith. As the definition is reliant on one's feeling that they don't fit the binary of man or woman, let's examine why someone may feel this way, the sociological reasons for the adoption of the non-binary identity. For the first time ever, there are now more higher educated women than men. This has coincided with the average age for women getting married being the highest it's ever been at 35. So women are more armed than ever with knowledge about themselves, as well as experience when it comes to relationships. We are well past the you can have it all idealism that Generation X will have grown up with. That extra time to try out cohabitation, find your place in the workplace, and be child-free has made it apparent that you can have some of it. The pandemic has shed light on the division of labor in heterosexual relationships. Looking at households where both parents were working, it was found that mothers still took on significantly more of the childcare. Fathers appeared to get a bigger shock from having to balance their caring and domestic responsibilities with work, as they were much more likely to report that childcare provision was interfering with their work. When I was looking through the studies which examined differences between men and women and how they split their time between parenting, leisure, and chores, it becomes quite apparent that men are taking more responsibilities that have traditionally been seen as women's work. And I don't want to denigrate men's efforts. I realize I'm very close to not all men territory here. But the key difference appears to be that women de facto run the house, and this takes up not physical labor, but also cognitive labor of monitoring and anticipating household matters. whilst identifying problems and deciding on their solutions was found to be jointly undertaken by both men and women. I think this phenomenon of the anticipatory nature of women's household tasks is best summed up by the phrase, "a woman's work is never done," and this is borne out in the studies looking at leisure time differences between the sexes. When looking at dual-income households who have just become parents, men and women spend roughly equal amount of time caring for their child and doing household chores on workdays. But when looking at leisure time, men had double the amount, and this was due to women picking up extra household duties. Women were just far more aware of what needs to be done, those automatic monitoring and anticipatory functions eating into time where they could be relaxing. So you have this disillusionment with heterosexual relationships coinciding with homosexual relationships becoming more visible than ever, especially on social media. Homosexual relationships automatically have a different power dynamic, which is easily romanticized. Same-sex relationships don't have these gendered roles, and have more egalitarian outcomes. For example, it has been found that gay and lesbian couples have a healthier conflict style when it comes to resolving problems. When it comes to childbirth and first stages parenting, arguably one of the most challenging, stressful things in life, lesbian couples report the lowest parenting stress, even when taking into account heterosexual couples who use IVF to conceive. Heterosexual women identifying as queer or non-binary is an attempt to, in a way, mimic homosexual relationships and throw off those gendered expectations. The separation of sex and gender has meant that gender now functions as a pseudo-social system. If you are non-binary, then you are signaling your non-committance to gendered roles to a potential partner. Also, if you have any form of gender identity, you are going to be left-leaning. Political compatibility is highly prized these days, especially amongst progressives. There is also this phenomenon which is specific to heterosexual women who have been burned so badly by men that they seriously consider dating women. I think a lot of women can relate to that post-breakup reflection period after the emotional dust has settled and ask themselves, what is wrong with men? Why are they like this? And wouldn't life be so much easier if I was just interested in women? The thought of having to navigate an app dating world which contains nice guys, porn-sick men, incels, and men with philosophy degrees is enough to make any woman bristle. But it is also because of dating apps that they can label themselves as non-binary or queer and easily meet and date lesbians or other queer-coded people. Some lesbians will now specifically state in their profiles that they are not taking on the burden of any first-time lesbians because of this. There are also a whole range of identities in the LGBTQIA acronym that make it easy to identify into. I think this is best illustrated with the following personal anecdote. So, I have made a lot of connections and friendships through the gaming website Twitch. I stream myself, and I like hanging out in smaller communities. So I was just hanging out in this small streamer's chat, and the streamer started talking about relationships and his identity as demisexual. I didn't know what this was. It appeared like some new sexuality had just dropped, and I wasn't in on what it meant. So I asked him, and he told me that for him, growing up, he couldn't relate to all his other friends wanting to sleep with girls on looks alone. He said he couldn't find someone attractive without knowing their personality, and that the demisexual label fitted his experience and he could better signal what he was looking for in a relationship. This made me pause, as it sounded exactly like my experience of attraction. Was I demisexual? Growing up, I didn't have pictures of Robbie Williams or boy bands on my wall, and I couldn't relate when my friends would talk about how hot they were. My attraction has always been couched in personality. My silly celebrity crushes would always be on the characters rather than the actor. And I will never for the life of me understand how people unironically wish Joe Goldberg from the Netflix show You was their boyfriend. I did a cursory Google on demisexuality, and saw they even had a flag. A further Google, and I saw that people were recounting their experiences with coming out as demisexual. This, for me, was a bridge too far. Coming out, an act that could have huge social cost for someone who is gay or lesbian, is now being used by straight individuals declaring themselves as being under the queer umbrella. And this is the direct parallel I would draw with non-binary people as well. You will often come across non-binary people on social media reveling in the fact that every relationship that they go on to engage in will automatically be a queer one. Queer is a way to shrug off gendered and societal expectations, whilst expecting that everyone outside this label conforms to them. And I think ultimately people identifying as queer is homophobic. It's seen as a lifestyle choice rather than an innate sexuality, and embodies a lot of the stereotypes which gay and lesbian people have sought to overcome. When thinking about how the Pride is for Everyone tagline has become heterosexual people identifying as queer, I can't help but be reminded of Chris Chan unashamedly adding an S to the start of LGBTQIA acronym to become SLGBTQIA. The S doesn't stand for Sonichu, it stands for straight. Maybe we really are a post-merge society. In the introduction to this video, I mentioned that a lot of women mentioned feminism in their Bumble BFF profiles, and that I was surprised by this. I think on some level, women do understand that they need female solidarity now more than ever. We have this duality where women in the Western world have more choices than ever before, yet are arguably the most sexualized and commodified than we ever have been. You will often see women on social media post innocent pictures of themselves online, only for men in the comments asking if she has an OnlyFans. Durham University offers sex workers courses about how to stay safe when offering their services, which they engage in order to pay their course fees. Brothels offering their services in exchange for the COVID-19 vaccine participation. I have worked in majority male workplaces and have overheard my male colleagues bonding over their favorite porn actresses or huddling together to share violent videos. Sometimes it's so ubiquitous and casual that you fail to register these behaviors. I do see the non-binary identity as a somewhat unconscious reaction to the prevalence of liberal feminism. Liberal feminism is all I have ever known, and prescribes that any choice a woman makes is inherently a feminist act. It's a world where porn and sex work is empowering, altering your physical features is in pursuit of a better self, and you're pressed upon to forgo same-sex spaces. Any criticism of such acts can be waved away with the words, well, that's her choice. Choice is equated to freedom, rather than examining the deeper reasons why women are treated in such a way. I mean, I unironically listen to WAP, but I'm also seeing an increasing need for the other kind of WAP. Confusing times. Alright, so take this next take with a pinch of salt, as I'm just speaking as a white millennial heterosexual woman, but the rise of identity politics is definitely a factor in the number of people identifying as queer. The integration of identity politics and corporations is an especially potent mix, and entire industries have been built out of this. Corporations are aware that they have to at least be seen to be making an effort to be more diverse or inclusive, and embracing queer identities is an easy way to do this. Queer identities are also given a veneer of legitimacy, with celebrities, media, and academia being vigilant when it comes to intersectionality. However, there is one identity which doesn't get a look in when it comes to diversity: a person's class. Going back to my Bumble BFF experience, I think it is of note that I have seen one other red femme profile on the app, and of the connections I have made, well, they have all been with Asian women. I know this is purely anecdotal, but I would theorize that this is because they have less of a propensity for social justice self-flagellation and weren't put off by the mention of radical feminism in my profile. Whereas white women are always reminded to keep their feminism intersectional, and are more likely to infer that I'm a little bit turfy. I'm not discounting intersectionality, but sometimes I do feel it is used to obscure the consciousness of women as a class. Additionally, I also noted that at least 50% of the profiles I saw made reference to being in support of LGBTQIA rights or put their pronouns in their bio without prompting. Alright, so now time for the big reveal. There is no gender identity. No one has a gender identity. Gender is a stereotypical slop of ideas, expectations, and ideals. You don't discover, you choose to be non-binary. From listening to what a lot of non-binary people say, you can tell they feel trapped by perceived gender norms. But if you try to opt out of heteronormity by being non-binary, the rules of the game still apply to you. There are structural issues with the way women are treated in this society, but the addition of non-binary identity just seeks to obfuscate them. I feel one of the hardest parts of this debate, and actually feminism in general, is making it clear that wanting parity between the sexes doesn't mean that we shouldn't acknowledge that men and women are different. For instance, having unisex bathrooms instead of single-sex spaces has been seen as an act of equality. Recently, it was reported that in a school where unisex toilets had been provided, the boys effectively took over these spaces, urinating in sanitary bins and making the female pupils so uncomfortable they were choosing to forgo water so they didn't have to use the bathroom. Another more trivial example are award shows doing away with sex-segregated categories. It's this failure to recognize that men and women will have different experiences that form their art, and some of the subjects they choose to explore may be dismissed by an overwhelmingly male establishment. It's effectively acting like sexism has been eradicated, and may the best man win. And it will be a man that wins. Furthermore, the non-binary identity is at odds with material reality, and can also be used to override the importance of a person's sex. I remember reading this Reddit post where a woman's boss came out as non-binary to their workplace, and as a result went on to use the women's toilets. As their boss had this trans status, the woman felt unable to raise the issue without fear of being reprimanded by her work. So, in this video, I have outlined the reasons why people may feel like they are non-binary. The main point I want to make is, it's a misguided reaction to a sick world. I realize I've given you problems when maybe you're after solutions. So, how do we solve the casual turmoil of the female existence and systemic sexism? Well, it starts with the eradication of gender identity and recognizing that women are discriminated against by virtue of being born female. I think that one small step that we can take to overcome the issues of alienation outlined in this video is to center women in your offline life and build better support networks. This could mean volunteering, or just getting together with female friends that you've lost touch with, or making new ones by friendship-based apps. Not sponsored, obviously. I have a small dream of putting together a rad fem board game night that I am determined to make happen. And when it does happen, I'm sure it will feel great to speak freely about trans issues, but I'm honestly more looking forward to, just for that moment, having a female-only space. So first of all, I want to say thank you for anyone who has watched, liked, commented, subscribed. You are all awesome, and dare I say, based? At one point, the algorithm gods decided to randomly push my last video, so I woke up to all these views, and I was like, yo, what's going on? But yeah, it was very cool. I also wanted to say that even if I don't respond to your comment, I do read them all, and it is YouTube and not me that deletes comments. I feel like YouTube kind of even tone polices comments, because I got this one comment which had no bad language. It was just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You are so wrong on this. Educate yourself. And YouTube decided to delete that. Yeah, I can handle that, YouTube. Moreover, I just wanted to ask that person what I got wrong, but I couldn't. I also loved receiving a free paragraph comment from someone who didn't even watch the video. That level of audacity just makes me laugh at the end of the day. But yeah, I love reading your comments, and you have great ideas that I can steal. I used to have a little community tab, but YouTube took it away for channels who have under 1,000 subs. So I can't tell you guys that I'm still alive or what I'm working on, but hopefully I reach that point at some point. And I think, I don't know, lastly, I think I'm going to rename my channel. I love the Sailor Uranus identity. Um, I identify strongly with that, you could say. But I got a comment that said they wanted to share my videos, but my channel name was a bit out there, and I wholeheartedly agree. And also, Sailor Uranus is not a unique name. I do have other original handles that I go by online, but they are all equally as silly. So I can't do that. I don't want to use my full name, as it sounds like a civil servant name. So I think I will use the name Amber Robbins from now on, which is like a part of my name and part bird. Um, Unless anyone has any better ideas, but yeah. I'm going to stop now as this is getting very navel gazy. So I'll just say I hope you are having a cool day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next one.